competitive is in trouble this year.
Yep. Pentagon figures show that for the first time since 2003, the cost of the war in Afghanistan is more than the cost for the war in Iraq. In February, taxpayers shelled out $6.7 billion for Afghanistan compared to $5.5 billion for Iraq. That dollar shift comes as the Pentagon adds troops and resources to Afghanistan. The total cost for the two wars now approaching $1 trillion.
Can you believe we've been there for almost a decade? Over the past year and a half, we have tripled the number of troops from 33,000 to 100,000. Tripled the number of troops. And pouring in all of this money and attention and blood. John, you say we're coming up to 1,000 troops, and yet the guy who's in charge over there says we're fighting a ragtag outfit to no better than a draw. A draw. 10 years in.
Okay.
And 10 years from now, I don't give a damn who the President of the United States is, there will still be angry Pashtun fighters shooting at Americans' heads.
Yeah. We were doing a piece on this on the PBS program for tonight, and one of the questions I asked a guy from the Council on Foreign Relations was, is this like the Middle East? It's a crisis that simply has to be managed, not resolved.
Right.
And that's all anybody says.
Right.
And obviously, you know, if you look at the Times Square case, you know, it's just it's ever with us.
It is. And Mike Barnacle, sorry to blow up the news, but this really is. I mean, this is the perplexing question to me. Every morning we get people coming on here, and I say, how much longer? Well, we've got to stay there. Why do we have to stay in Afghanistan for another decade? Because Pakistan's so important. This is the sort of thing a decade from now people are going to be looking back and saying, oh, you had to burn the village to save it. This is the stupidest logic, and Americans are dying. I keep hearing it, and I'm going to go back to what Joe Biden said. If Pakistan is the most important planet for the United States geopolitically, then why are we spending 50 times the amount of money in Afghanistan as we are in Pakistan? Because winning Afghanistan won't do a damn thing to stabilizing the situation in Pakistan in the long run.
You know, there are several elements of frustration with regard to the war in Afghanistan. One of the big ones is the geography of the war. We're in Afghanistan when Pakistan is the real focal point of our policy in that area,
right,
and of the danger presented to us in that area, in western Pakistan. The other element of it is, and we alluded to this earlier, we are fighting still two wars. If you have American soldiers on the ground in Iraq and American soldiers on the ground in Afghanistan, I don't care about withdrawal policies. We're still involved in two wars. Go find a story about those wars in any paper in this country today. It's very rare that you'll find one on the front page. We're being less than 1% of the people in the armed forces, less than 1% of the American population. You can go anywhere today in the course of your normal day and not encounter someone with a member of the military.
The press has been sleeping. They have been sleeping because these were George W. Bush's wars. Barack Obama took over. The press has slept through the fact that Barack Obama has tripled the number of troops in Afghanistan. Has slept through it. Slept through it. Again, if George W. Bush, hiked up, the surge was 20,000 in Iraq? And it was a bloodbath. It was a political front page war for several months. Again, and of course, most Republicans, by the way, agree with the president. The president's very popular with Republicans on this issue. It's his own Democratic Party and a few of us cranky conservatives that are asking questions now.
But I don't think it's partisan, and I don't think it's the press. I think it's what Mike just said. There are so few people with a direct stake in this. And democracies that don't have a direct stake in the projection of force on a personal level, when you professionalize essentially the military, you become disconnected from the genuine cost.
It was the same situation with Iraq and Afghanistan. And those were on the front pages for until George W. Bush left the White House.
True, but part of this is also that the surge, to President Bush's to the argument that
you can say credit. You guys said we won Iraq.
Yeah, we did, and you were very supportive of that, as I recall, that whole enterprise.
Yeah.
But I do think that, but frankly, that was the press trying to figure out what are we really doing here. I think it's very interesting that even in Vietnam you had battles, campaigns that had names that meant something to people.
Right.
There isn't that for Iraq or Afghanistan. A decade in.
Look, you take the papers today. The Gulf oil story, big story, no doubt about it. Investigating the banks, big story, no doubt about it. The two most important stories of the day today, at least to me and I think to a lot of other people, Jeffrey Johnson, 21, Corporal, Marine Corps, Tomball, Texas, dead in Afghanistan.
21-year-old American, and I will say it boy, because I've got a 22-year-old boy.
Kenneth May Jr., 26, Sergeant, Marine Corps, Kilgore, Texas, 1st Marine Division, dead in Afghanistan. We're approaching 1,000. 1,000. We're approaching 1,000 deaths in Afghanistan. Go find it in the newspaper. It
happens in Iraq. It happens in Afghanistan every day. Nobody's paying attention. And we are on a policy, we are on a course in Afghanistan that will keep us there for another decade. And again, it's not even the country that any foreign policy analyst says matters. It's Pakistan. I would much rather take the billions of dollars we're spending in Afghanistan, where young Americans are dying, and just bribe Pakistani officials. Bribing works. It really does.
It always has.
It always has. You're from Boston. You should know.
Yeah.
Let's go to sports with Willie. Speaking of Boston.
Well, here's a smooth transition from something a little slightly less